Everybody, welcome back. This is Graham Brown, and it is 10 Minute Leaders Live, joined today all the way from Ohio by Nate Dukes. Nate, welcome to the show.
Hey, Graham, I'll tell you, I have watched your show for a while now from the sidelines. I love what you are doing. This is an incredible show. You've had some really cool guests on here, and I'm just thankful to be a part of it.
Well, thankful that you're joining as well. So, we're going to talk about you, your journey, your writings, comebacks as well. So, how about that? We've got 10 minutes together. You ready, Nate?
I am ready, man.
Okay, so Nate from Ohio, your 10 minutes starts now. What do you have a business card? If you
I
do, what
don't
does it
I
say?
don't have a business card, but if I did, it would say professional comeback kid. I have
Comeback
experienced
kid.
Yeah, man. I've experienced a lot of failure in my life, but I figured out how to turn that failure and actually create some really cool growth moments in my life.
All right, tell us about your failures.
Yeah, so
The
grow
comeback kid, he comes back,
yeah,
doesn't
that's
give
right.
up.
That's right. So growing up, we were the poor family, right? We didn't have a whole lot. And my parents, they were really kids trying to raise kids. They had a lot of broken mindsets, and those were passed down to us. And when I turned 18, I really wanted to escape the chaos of my childhood. So I went to college. But instead of trying to better myself through my studies, I actually found myself being obsessed with the party scene and getting developed into drugs and alcohol and really spending a lot of time there. And from there, what turned out to be like a weekend experience is what it started out as, turned into a full-blown drug addiction at age 21 years old. And so after 4 years, I came nowhere near getting a degree, but I actually had to move back in with my mom and dad. And I'll be honest with you, man, I had a really good time. But what feels good in the moment isn't always good for your future. And
Mhm.
so I found myself in this desperate place, and I moved back in with my parents, and I actually started my own marketing company at age 22. I wanted to like create some success. I wanted to get rid of this poverty mindset that I had. And maybe you've heard these stories of these like young kids who drop out of college and they become extremely successful and they build these brilliant companies. That is not my story. Okay. I just want to be very clear. That did not happen for me. But what it did do is it allowed me to actually open a few doors to be able to open up a business in downtown Youngstown. It was a bar and restaurant. And a buddy of mine approached me, and we were able to start this business. And we took at what was failing in the beginning and we turned it around into something that was pretty successful over the course of 2 years. And now I had access to more money than I'd ever seen in my entire life. Now, it wasn't a life-changing amount of money, but you got to understand, for me being the poor kid growing up, it felt like the world. I had the right car. I had a beautiful apartment. I was in social settings that I had never had access to before, but I was still empty on the inside and I couldn't figure out why. And so I tried to fill that emptiness with anything that I could. And the drug addiction really started to ramp up then. And then I started gambling. I started going to casinos. And I'm the classic definition of a bad gambler, right? I will just keep going back and keep losing more and more.
Mm.
And the lowest point of my life is I gambled everything that I personally had away, but my business bank accounts were full. And I started taking money from my business bank accounts to feed this addiction. And we had several employees who worked for us. And my business partner came in one day and he said, "Nate, it's time to cut the checks." And I just came clean in that moment. I said, if we write these checks, there's not going to be enough money in the accounts to cover them. He was confused. He was frustrated. He was upset. Then he realized that I'd taken the payroll money the night before and I'd gambled it all away. And so he gave me an ultimatum at this point. He said, "Nate, you can sign this business over to me and walk away free and clear, or I'm going to get lawyers involved and I'm going to press charges." So at 26 years old, I signed this business over away. I don't know who I am. My identity is wrapped up in being a business owner. And when I don't have that, I didn't know who I was anymore. And I moved back in with my parents again, and I could hardly hold down a job. I would get a job as a server at a local restaurant. I'd end up stealing from the cash register there. I get caught and I get fired. And this process, it repeated 3 different times. And finally, the last time I got caught, I was walking around my parents' apartment complex. It was 3 a.m. I'd just taken a handful of pills. And I was going to different vehicles, trying to see if they were unlocked, or if I was really looking for anything that I could take or that I could get my hands on to sell, to feed this addiction that was going on the inside of me. And I ended up lifting up the center console of a 1999 Buick LeSabre, and I pulled out the spare keys to the car, because apparently that's where you keep the spare keys to a 99 Buick LeSabre. And in that moment, I thought to myself, man, maybe this is a chance to escape, to get away from my life, to run away from my problems. I didn't wake up that morning thinking to myself, today's the day that I steal a car. But when you find yourself in the wrong place with the wrong headspace, you never really know what is possible. And so there I was. I had taken this car, packed up 5 garbage bags of clothes. I loaded up in the car, and I headed to Houston, Texas, of all places. I had a buddy who lived down there who told me that he was going to help me get on my feet if I ever found a way. Now, he didn't know that I was going to steal this car and drive across the country. And frankly, neither did I. But man, I don't know if you've ever tried to run away from your problems before, but oftentimes our problems have a way of catching up with us, because it's not always our surroundings that's the issue. Oftentimes it's us. And so here I was driving across the country. I made it halfway, right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, a small town called Ashland City. I pulled into a gas station. I just wanted to get some sleep, and I was woken up at 3 a.m. to 3 really loud bangs on the driver's side window. A police officer's hand reached in, pulled me out of the car, put me in handcuffs, and sat me in the back of a cop car. And in that moment, the weight of all the decisions I'd made sat on my chest like a ton of bricks. And this voice kept repeating to myself over and over and over again. It was the same voice that my business partner told me. It was the same voice that teachers had told me growing up. It was the same voice that was in my own head repeating over and over again. And it was this thought: you'll never change. This is who you are. Your life is never going to be any different. And so they took me to Cheatham County Jail, where I spent 6 months of my life. And I'll tell you, when I was there, the only opportunity that we got to get out of our pod was a pod style facility. So I shared it with 16 guys. There was 8 bunk beds. There was 3 tables. There was 2 toilets. There was 1 TV. But there were 0 windows. And the only chance we got to get out was once a month. They offered something called church service. Now, I was not interested in going to church, but I was interested in getting out of that pod. And so we walked down this long hallway, and off to the left-hand side, there was a cinder block room with 16 folding chairs set up. And in walks this really, really old guy with this really, really old guitar. And he looks at us and he says, "Fellas, the only difference between me and you is that I never got caught." And he starts to sing the song Amazing Grace. And it just goes, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see." And I look around this room, man, and I see 16 criminals who've hurt people, who've taken advantage, with tears streaming down their face. And they were ugly crying. They were white girl drunk crying, okay? And it was this moment where I wasn't worried about my past, the things that I had done wrong. I wasn't worried about my future, when I was going to get out of there. I had this overwhelming sense of peace. And I just thought to myself in that moment, if it is possible to change, then man, I really want to. And that weight began to lift off of my chest. And they gave me a felony theft over 1,000. They let me transfer my probation back to Ohio, where I was from. And when I got out, I got obsessed with how do I become the best version of myself, because I never wanted to go back there. I got obsessed with personal development. I got my hands on a John Maxwell book that said, if you want your life to change, you've got to be the one that changes first. And so I went through this process of change, and I'll tell you, several years removed from that now, my life looks very different. So now I got married to the love of my life last year. We bought our first investment property, and we're actually looking at acquiring a second one. I've sat on the board of a nonprofit for underprivileged youth. I get to lead hundreds of volunteers at my local church. And for the last 18 months, I've been working on a project to help people who feel like their life is too messy to change, who struggle with self-confidence, who want to go to the next level. And it's this book that I've written called You'll Never Change: Create Your Comeback and Prove Them Wrong.
And for those that think that they can't change, what do you say to those message for those listeners out there?
So for your life to change, first of all, you have to be the one that believes it. I believe that everything that you have inside of you to change is already there. I believe that you can create the life that you have always wanted, but it does not matter what I think about you. It matters what you think about you. And I'm here to tell you that who you were is not who you are. The beautiful thing about change and making a new life is that today you can just decide. There's no magic formula. There's no pill. There's no prayer that you can. Today you can just say, I want to change, and you can begin to make new decisions. It works just like that. Now, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be easy, but it is possible.
Nate Jukes, everybody. The book is behind you.
Yeah, right behind me, man. Yeah, right there.
There we go. And where can people get this? So shout out to more info about you and your story and your book.
Yeah, you'llneverchange.com. It's also available on Amazon. It was a #1 bestseller.
And what has writing the book actually taught you as opposed to the reader?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you, a good book is the conversation that you have over and over and over again. And I've gotten to coach a lot of people through their comeback story. And writing this book, it wasn't just for other people. It was great. And I've seen so many success stories come from it. It's been incredible. I love that. But man, peeling back some of these layers, because it's my story that's in the book, but also the principles that I use to start from the bottom. And I got deep, and I realized that there is still some hurt and some pain and some trauma that I had to uncover and unpack. And it was this beautiful process that I went on for a really long time of figuring out, what does it take for me as a human to actually create the life that I've always wanted.
It's powerful stuff, Nate. Once again, where can we go and find out more about it?
You'llneverchange.com, or it's available on Amazon if you just type in You'll Never Change.
Awesome. Nate Jukes, everybody. Nate, thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your story.
Graham, thank you so much, man. I love this show.